Li Jinwu stood at the transport ship's viewport, his face showing no emotion as 5 Imperial warships surrounded his small vessel. The refugee ship he had been protecting was now safely away, jumping to Earth Alliance space. That was what mattered. He had completed his mission. Captain Li, his ship's computer announced, "Enemy ships are charging weapons." Jinwu nodded slowly. His fingers moved across the control panel, shutting down all weapons. There was no point in fighting now. He had known this might happen when he chose to stay behind as a decoy. The Imperial ships fired their first warning shot. The blast passed close to Jinwu's ship, making it shake. He remained steady on his feet, years of Marine training keeping him balanced. His black uniform was clean and pressed, even after the long chase. He wanted to look proper when they took him. It was something his old drill sergeant had taught him. Always look professional, even in defeat. Imperial command to unknown vessel. A voice crackled through his communication system. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Jinwu pressed a button. This is Captain Li Jinwu of the Earth Alliance Marines. I surrender. There was a pause on the other end. Jinwu knew why. The Empire had never captured a human soldier before. Their war with Earth had only started 6 months ago, and so far, they had only fought in space battles. This would be their first chance to see what a human looked like up close. The Imperial ships moved closer. Jinwu could see their boarding tubes extending toward his ship. He stood straight, hands behind his back, waiting. The sound of cutting tools filled the air as they broke through his ship's hull. The first Imperial soldiers who entered his ship were tall, blue-skinned creatures in heavy armor. They pointed their weapons at him, moving carefully. Jinwu noticed how their hands shook slightly. They were afraid of him. Good. They should be. On your knees, one soldier shouted in broken Earth English. Jinwu slowly got down, keeping his movements calm and steady. As they put restraints on his wrists, he studied their equipment, their weapons, their armor. Everything could be useful information later. The Imperial commander walked in next. Unlike his soldiers, he looked relaxed. "So this is a human," he said, looking down at Jinwu. "I expected something more impressive." Jinwu said nothing. Let them think he was weak. Let them underestimate him. It would make things easier later. They took him to their ship, putting him in a cell. Through the clear walls, he could hear them talking, deciding what to do with him. They thought he couldn't understand their language. Another mistake. The Empire didn't know that all Earth Marines learned alien languages as part of their training. Send him to Nexus 7, the commander finally decided. Classification: Class C threat. Low danger level. Jinwu allowed himself a small smile. Class C threat. Low danger level. The Empire really didn't understand humans at all. That would be their biggest mistake. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Jinwu began to plan. Nexus 7 was their best prison, they said. No one had ever escaped. But they had never tried to hold a human before. And not just any human, a Marine. The Empire thought they had caught a simple soldier. Instead, they had captured someone who had been trained to turn any situation to his advantage. They would learn their mistakes soon enough. Jinwu closed his eyes, appearing to sleep. But his mind was already working, preparing for what would come next. The Empire was about to learn an important lesson about humans. They were about to learn that capturing a Marine wasn't the end of the fight. It was just the beginning. The prison transport ship landed smoothly in Nexus 7's main hangar. Li Jinwu stood calmly as the guards led him out. The hangar was massive, with high metal walls and bright white lights. Other ships were landing and taking off, bringing more prisoners to the Empire's most secure facility. Commander Kim Ta-young watched from an observation room above. He studied the human prisoner with interest. This was the first time he had seen a human up close. The prisoner walked with perfect posture, his eyes taking in everything around him. Something about his calm manner made Ta-young uncomfortable. "Processing room 3, a guard announced, pushing Jinwu forward. In the processing room, Jin Woo met his first fellow prisoner. It was a tall, thin alien with silver skin who was working as a prisoner clerk. The alien's name tag read Clarix. Name and origin? Clarix asked, not looking up from his datapad. Lee Jinwoo, Earth Alliance. Clarix's head snapped up at the word Earth. His large eyes widened with interest. A human. Here. He looked around quickly, then lowered his voice. The Empire must not know what they're doing, putting you in general population. Jinwoo said nothing, but he noticed how Clarix's fingers moved across the datapad. The alien was entering his information incorrectly on purpose, marking him as a low-security prisoner. Interesting. He had found his first ally already. The next stop was the prison uniform distribution. The officer in charge was a woman in an imperial uniform, but something was different about her. She had the bearing of a soldier, not a prison guard. When she saw Jinwoo, her eyes showed recognition. "I am Officer Park Hyrin," she said formally. "Arms up for uniform measurement." As she measured him, she whispered very quietly, "Former Imperial Special Forces. They imprisoned me for questioning orders. If you're planning anything, I want in." Jinwoo gave a tiny nod, keeping his face neutral. 2 allies in less than an hour. The Empire was making this almost too easy. The guards took him to his cell next. As they walked through the prison corridors, Jinwoo memorized every turn, every security camera, every guard post. He noticed that some of the security cameras turned slightly as he passed. Someone in the security room was watching him with special interest. His cell was small but clean. The force field that served as a door hummed with energy. Jinwoo sat on the bed and waited. 3, 2, 1. "Prisoner Lee." A voice came through the speaker. "Commander Kim Tae-young wishes to speak with you." Right on time. Jinwoo had known the prison commander wouldn't be able to resist talking to him. Humans were too new, too interesting. The Empire's curiosity would be another weakness he could use. As guards escorted him to the commander's office, Jinwoo passed the prison's main control room. Through the reinforced windows, he saw the quantum containment systems that kept the prison secure. Dr. Song Yunji, the quantum mechanics expert he had helped escape 3 months ago, had told him all about these systems. The Empire was using outdated technology, thinking it was cutting edge. Commander Kim Tae-young was waiting in his office, trying to look imposing behind his large desk. "Sit down, human," he said. "Let's talk about how you're going to help me understand your species better." Jinwoo sat down, keeping his face expressionless. The commander had no idea that every word he said, every detail he revealed, would help bring this entire prison down. The plan was already taking shape, piece by piece. Chief Security Officer Choi Dong-huk stared at his screens with growing concern. Something was not right in Nexus 7, but he could not prove it. He watched as the human prisoner, Lee Jinwoo, walked calmly through the exercise yard. The prisoner had been here for 2 weeks now, and his behavior was perfect. Too perfect. "Show me the supply records again," Dong-huk ordered his computer. Numbers appeared on the screen. Food supplies were slightly lower than they should be. Tools from maintenance kept disappearing and reappearing. Small things. Things that could be explained away. But together, they made a pattern. The door to the security office opened. Commander Kim Tae-young walked in, looking pleased with himself. "Our human prisoner is a model inmate," he said. "Perhaps Earth humans are not as dangerous as intelligence suggested." Dong-huk pointed to his screens. "Sir, with respect, look at these patterns. The human walks the same path through the yard each day, but the path changes slightly each week. He is mapping the facility." "You are too suspicious," Tae-young said. "He is just exercising." "The maintenance logs, sir. Tools go missing during his work detail, then return an hour later. And here, look at the security camera in Block C. It turned away from its usual position for exactly 3 minutes yesterday." In the yard below, Jinwoo sat at a table with the silver-skinned alien clerk, Clarix. They appeared to be playing a simple game with cards. But Dong Huk noticed how Jin Woo's fingers moved when he put down each card. It looked like signals. "Officer Park." Dong Huk called to Hai Rin, who was guarding the yard. "What are they talking about?" "Just discussing the food, sir," Hai Rin reported back. "The human is teaching clerics about Earth card games." But Dong Huk saw how Hai Rin's eyes lingered on Jin Woo for a moment too long. He had been in security for 20 years. He knew when someone was lying. Later that day, Dong Huk checked the prison's quantum containment field readings. The power levels showed tiny fluctuations. Most people would miss them, but Dong Huk had helped install these systems. They never fluctuated. He walked down to the kitchen area. The supervisor, Yang Mai-suk, was checking inventory. "Everything normal?" he asked. "Of course," Mai-suk said quickly. "Too quickly. Just the usual meals." But Dong Huk noticed how some containers were arranged differently. The cleaning supplies had been moved, and there was a new mark on the wall near the ventilation shaft. In the maintenance section, he found Han Jae-sung working on a control panel. "Regular repairs?" Dong Huk asked. "Yes, sir. Just routine checks," Jae-sung answered. But his tools were arranged in an unusual pattern, and the panel he was working on controlled part of the prison's power distribution system. That night, Dong Huk sat in his office, looking at all his notes. The human prisoner was at the center of everything. Small changes, tiny adjustments, things that looked normal unless you knew exactly what to look for. He opened a communication channel to Imperial Command, but before he could speak, his screens went dark. When they came back on, all his evidence was gone. The security logs had been wiped clean. Through his office window, he saw Jin Woo walking back to his cell. The human looked up at the security office and smiled slightly. It was not a friendly smile. Dong Huk reached for his emergency alarm, but deep down, he knew it was already too late. The prison kitchen was quiet during the night shift. Yang Mai-suk checked the security cameras before opening a hidden panel behind the large food storage units. Inside, she found a detailed map of the prison's delivery schedule. She had drawn it herself, following Lee Jin-woo's instructions. Mai-suk remembered the day Jin-woo first came to work in her kitchen. He was polite and worked hard, but she noticed how he always asked clever questions about food deliveries and storage. After 3 days, he told her the truth. He had a plan to help prisoners who had been wrongly jailed. She agreed to help immediately. In the maintenance section, Han Jae-sung was teaching Jin-woo about the prison's power systems. "These cables connect to the main quantum containment field," Jae-sung explained quietly. "The Empire thinks their technology is advanced, but it has many weak points." Jin-woo nodded, memorizing everything. "And the backup systems? They activate automatically if main power fails," Jae-sung said. "But there is a 5-second delay. The Empire's engineers were lazy. They never fixed this problem." In her guard post, Park Hai-rin watched the security cameras. She saw Jin-woo meeting different prisoners throughout the day. To others, these meetings looked random. But Hai-rin knew better. She had been a military officer. She recognized careful planning when she saw it. Cleric sat at his clerk's desk, entering data into the prison's computer system. His silver fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. With each entry, he changed small details in the prison records. A prisoner's location here, a guard's schedule there. Little changes that would add up to something big. "The human is very smart," Clerics whispered to Hai-rin when she passed his desk. "He never tells anyone the whole plan. Each of us knows only our part. Safer that way." Jin-woo spent his afternoons in the prison library. The guards thought he was reading. Instead, he was meeting with different members of his network. Today, he sat with a group of former scientists who had been imprisoned for refusing to work on Empire weapons. "The quantum field calculations are complex," one scientist said. "But if we time everything perfectly, it could work." Jin-woo passed them a small note. "These are the numbers we need. Can you check them?" The scientists' eyes widened as they read the calculations. "This is brilliant," one whispered. "Where did you learn this?" Earth Alliance Marine training included quantum mechanics. Jin Wu said simply, "The Empire thinks we are primitive. They do not know what humans can do." That evening, Commander Kim Tai-young called Jin Wu to his office again. The commander liked to study his human prisoner, thinking he was learning Earth's secrets. He did not realize that Jin Wu was studying him too. "You seem to be adjusting well," Tai-young said. "No escape attempts, no fights. Very different from what we expected." Jin Wu smiled politely. "The Empire has been very kind to me." But in his mind, Jin Wu reviewed his network: kitchen staff who controlled food and supplies, maintenance workers who knew every pipe and wire, scientists who understood the quantum containment fields, guards who could look the other way at the right moment. Everything was almost ready. The Empire had built the perfect prison, but they had made one big mistake. They had put a Marine inside it, and Marines were trained to turn enemy strengths into weaknesses. The prison transport ship landed in the early morning. Li Jinwu watched from his workstation in the maintenance area as guards led out a group of new prisoners. His eyes narrowed when he saw their uniforms: Earth Alliance Science Division. The Empire had just made its biggest mistake. Among the scientists, one person caught his attention immediately. Dr. Song Yunji walked with her head held high, ignoring the guards who pushed her forward. Jinwu knew her reputation. She was one of Earth's best quantum mechanics experts. "New prisoners for science block," a guard announced over the radio. "High security protocols in effect." Jinwu turned to Han Jae-sung, who was working beside him. "We need access to the science block." "Already done," Jae-sung whispered. "I'm assigned to fix their lighting system tomorrow. You'll be my helper." In the prison's command center, Commander Kim Tai-young reviewed the new prisoners' files. "Earth Alliance scientists," he told his officers. "They refused to share their research with the Empire. Put them in Block D, maximum security." Chief Security Officer Choi Dong-huk frowned. "Sir, that's the same block as the human prisoner." "They are scientists, not soldiers," Tai-young said. "What harm could they do?" The next day, Jin Wu walked into Block D with his maintenance cart. Dr. Song was sitting in her cell, reading. When she saw him, her eyes widened slightly, but she showed no other reaction. She was good at keeping secrets. "Lighting check," Jin Wu announced loudly. As he worked on the lights, he spoke very quietly. "Hello, Doctor. Remember that quantum field project you were working on before the war? The one about reversing containment fields?" She whispered back. "Yes, the Empire tried to steal it. That's why I'm here." "The prison uses old quantum technology," Jin Wu said. "Version 6, I think." Dr. Song smiled slightly. "Version 6. We broke that 3 years ago. The Empire really doesn't know, do they?" Throughout the day, Jin Wu moved through Block D, pretending to fix lights. Each time he passed a scientist's cell, he gave them specific information. By evening, every Earth scientist knew their part in the plan. Park Hyrin watched from her guard post. She saw how the scientists began talking to each other during mealtimes, sharing calculations and formulas. The Empire's guards thought they were just discussing basic science. They didn't understand that they were hearing the prison's destruction being planned. That night, Jin Wu met with his core team secretly in the kitchen. "Dr. Song can reverse the quantum fields," he told them. "But we need to make changes to the power systems first." "My kitchen staff can create a power surge," Yang Maisuk said. "All the cooking units turned on at once should do it. The backup generators will kick in," Jae-sung added. "But remember that 5-second gap I told you about. That's our window." Cleric showed them his computer screen. "I've changed all the security protocols. When the power surges, the system will think it's a normal fluctuation." Jin Wu looked at his team. "The Empire thinks they caught some helpless scientists. Instead, they just gave us everything we need. In 1 week, this prison won't just have a breakout. It's going to disappear completely. Outside in the guard post, Dong Huk watched the group leave the kitchen one by one. He knew something was happening, but every time he reported his concerns, Commander Taeyang ignored him. The Empire's pride was blinding them to the danger. By the time they realized their mistake, it would be too late. Imperial Inspector Yoon Sung-ho's ship landed exactly on schedule. He stepped out wearing a crisp black uniform with gold trim, ready to perform his quarterly inspection of Nexus 7. Commander Kim Tae-yun waited to greet him, standing straight and proud. "Welcome, Inspector," Tae-yun said. "You will find everything in perfect order." In the prison's power control room, Lee Jinwoo watched the inspector's arrival on a security screen. He checked his watch. The inspection would take exactly 3 hours. The Empire was always precise with their schedules. It made them predictable. "All teams ready?" Jinwoo asked quietly into his hidden communicator. "Kitchen team ready," Yang Maisuk's voice answered. "All cooking units are set." "Maintenance ready," Han Jae-sung reported. "Power systems are prepared." "Science team in position," Dr. Song Eun-ji whispered. "Quantum calculations are complete." Inspector Yoon walked through the prison halls, making notes on his datapad. Chief Security Officer Choi Dong-huk followed behind him, trying to speak up about his concerns. "Sir, I must report some unusual patterns," Dong-huk started. "Officer Choi," Inspector Yoon cut him off. "This is the Empire's most secure facility. Your concerns are unnecessary." In her guard post, Park Hai-rin watched the inspector's group move through the prison. She sent a silent signal to clerics, who began typing quickly at his clerk station. Security cameras started turning away from key areas, one by one. "Power levels in Block C showing minor fluctuations," a guard reported. "Normal variance," Commander Taeyang said quickly. "Nothing to concern the inspector with." But Dong-huk saw Jinwoo smile slightly as he worked on a control panel. The human's hands moved with purpose, making tiny adjustments that nobody else would notice. Dr. Song sat in her cell, writing complex equations. The guards thought she was doing puzzles to pass the time. They didn't realize she was calculating exactly how to reverse the prison's quantum containment fields. 30 minutes until inspection reaches Block D. Hai-rin's voice came through Jinwoo's hidden communicator. Jinwoo nodded to Jae-sung. "Start the power adjustments." Slowly. Throughout the prison, lights began to flicker slightly. Computer screens showed small errors. The quantum containment fields rippled in ways too subtle to trigger alarms. "Something's wrong," Dong-huk said urgently. "Sir, the power readings." "Everything is within normal parameters," Inspector Yoon said firmly. "This is why Nexus 7 is our best facility. Its systems are perfect." In the kitchen, Maisuk began turning on cooking units one by one. The power drain grew gradually. In the maintenance areas, Jae-sung diverted power between systems, creating a web of energy fluctuations. Dr. Song watched her cell's force field flicker. The quantum field was already changing. The Empire scientists would have seen the danger signs if they had known what to look for, but they had never studied human quantum mechanics. Jinwoo stood at his control panel, watching everything come together. The Empire had built this prison to be escape-proof, but they had never considered that someone might turn the entire facility into a weapon. "All teams," Jinwoo whispered into his communicator, "prepare for final sequence. The Empire is about to learn why you should never underestimate a Marine." Inspector Yoon Sung-ho stood in the prison's main control room, reviewing the final security reports. Commander Kim Tae-yun smiled confidently beside him. Neither man noticed the small red light blinking on the quantum control panel. "As you can see, Inspector, Nexus 7 remains the Empire's most secure facility," Tae-yun said proudly. In the kitchen, Yang Maisuk looked at her clock. "Now," she whispered. She pressed the activation buttons on all cooking units at once. The power surge rushed through the prison systems. Chief Security Officer Choi Dong-hyuk saw the power readings spike. "Sir, the power grid. Just a routine surge," Commander Tae-young said quickly. "The backup systems will handle it." But Han Jae-sung was ready in the maintenance control room. As the backup generators activated, he redirected the power flow through the circuits he had modified. The 5-second delay began. In her cell, Dr. Song Eun-ji started counting. 5, 4, 3. Lee Jin-woo stood at his control panel, entering the final commands. The quantum containment fields were already changing, responding to Dr. Song's calculations. The Empire's supposedly perfect prison was about to turn against itself. 2, 1. The lights flickered throughout Nexus 7. Computer screens went dark for a moment. The quantum containment fields shimmered strangely. "What's happening?" Inspector Yoon demanded. Park Hye-rin quickly locked the control room doors, trapping the inspector and commander inside. Through the windows, they watched in horror as the prison's walls began to glow with a blue light. "Quantum field reversal complete," Dr. Song announced calmly through the prison's communication system. "Phase shift beginning." The Empire's guards ran to their stations, but their security codes no longer worked. Clerics had changed them all. The prisoners who had joined Jin-woo's plan moved calmly to their assigned positions, ready for what would come next. "Stop this immediately," Commander Tae-young shouted into the prison's announcement system. "This is impossible. No one can reverse a quantum containment field." Jin-woo's voice answered him. "The Empire should have studied human science more carefully. Your technology is years behind ours." The blue glow grew brighter. The prison's walls began to fade, becoming transparent. Through them, strange lights and colors appeared, like looking through a window into another dimension. "What have you done?" Inspector Yoon whispered. "We're not breaking out of your prison," Jin-woo explained calmly. "We're taking it with us. The quantum fields aren't failing. They're shifting the entire facility into a parallel space." Dong-hyuk watched as his security screens showed the world outside Nexus 7 growing dim and distant. The prison wasn't being destroyed. It was disappearing from normal space completely. "Major phase shift in 10 seconds, Dr. Song announced. "All personnel brace for transition." Jin-woo looked through the fading walls at the shocked faces of the Imperial officials. The Empire thought they could hold humans in their best prison. "Instead, we're going to use it as our new base." The blue light flashed brilliantly. There was a sensation like the whole world turning inside out. Then, in an instant, Nexus 7 vanished from Imperial space, where the Empire's greatest prison had stood. There was nothing but empty air. The Imperial High Command's emergency meeting room was filled with worried officers. On their main screen, they watched the same recording over and over. The massive prison complex of Nexus 7 surrounded by a blue light, then simply vanishing into thin air. "Report," the High Commander demanded. "No trace of the facility remains, sir," an officer said. "All quantum signatures are gone. It's as if Nexus 7 never existed." The room fell silent as a transmission alert appeared on their screens. The signal came from nowhere, or perhaps everywhere. The officers watched as Lee Jin-woo's face appeared on their display. "Greetings, Imperial High Command," Jin-woo said calmly. He sat in what used to be Commander Kim Tae-young's office. "I trust you've noticed that your prison is missing." The High Commander's face turned dark with anger. "Return our facility immediately." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Jin-woo replied. "You see, Nexus 7 is now operating in a parallel dimension. Your sensors can't find us, because we technically don't exist in your space anymore." Behind Jin-woo, they could see Dr. Song Eun-ji working at a control panel. The quantum field equations displayed on her screen were far more advanced than anything the Empire had seen before. "The prison's quantum containment systems now work for us," Jin-woo explained. "We can appear anywhere in Imperial space, strike at any target, and vanish again. Your own security technology has become our greatest weapon." The Imperial officers watched in horror as Jin Wu showed them their new reality. The prison's defense systems had been turned outward. Its power core now drove a massive engine. The Empire's most secure facility had become a mobile fortress. Commander Kim and Inspector Yoon are safe, Jin Wu added. They're learning some interesting things about human capabilities. Most of your guards chose to join us when they saw what we could do. The ones who didn't were sent home in escape pods. Park Hai-rin appeared next to Jin Wu. She no longer wore an Imperial uniform. Many of us served the Empire loyally until we saw its true nature, she said. Now we fight for a better future. The High Commander slammed his fist on the table. This is impossible. No species could have this level of technology. That was your first mistake, Jin Wu said. You thought humans were primitive because we were new to space. You didn't realize we had already mastered sciences you haven't even discovered yet. On the screens behind Jin Wu, the officers could see Empire supply ships exploding. Nexus 7 had appeared from nowhere, attacked, and vanished again before anyone could respond. Consider this a message from Earth, Jin Wu continued. The next time you capture a Marine, remember what happened to your best prison. Humanity is not what you thought we were. The transmission ended. The Imperial High Command sat in stunned silence, realizing that everything had changed. They had tried to imprison humanity's warriors. Instead, they had given them the perfect weapon. In the parallel dimension, Jin Wu stood at Nexus 7's main viewport, watching his new crew work. Former guards and prisoners working together, using the Empire's own technology against them. He smiled slightly, remembering his old drill sergeant's words. A Marine can turn any situation to their advantage. The Empire had wanted to study humans. Now they would learn their lesson the hard way.